Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Kassandra. This is my dog Luna, and this is another coffee chat video. So I've been doing these sit down videos where I get to answer some of your questions and talk about topics that are sometimes related to yoga and sometimes related to other things that I care about. So one thing that's come up a lot is people have been asking me what my yoga story is. So how I started practicing yoga and how I eventually began my teaching career, how I started teaching yoga. So I am 28 as of filming this video, which means that my yoga journey began a little bit over 10 years ago. I took my first yoga class. I can't quite remember if I was 17 or 18, but around that time. So growing up, I was a dancer. I did ballet, jazz, modern, point, all that kind of stuff from age 3 all the way to 19 or 20 or so. And the only reason I went to a yoga studio and took a yoga class was because I wanted to become a better dancer. I was looking to increase my flexibility and get a little bit stronger. It might be, I don't know, it might seem strange or hard to believe, but I wasn't very flexible as a dancer. Flexibility is something that I've struggled with, and I'm much more flexible now that I mainly do yoga as opposed to when I was growing up dancing. Is that fun for you? So anyway, that's all it was. One day I just decided to go check out what this yoga thing was about. I took a few classes, and I don't really have the story that a lot of people have where they go to a yoga class, they get on the mat, and they just suddenly fall in love with yoga. That didn't happen to me. I'd like to be able to say that it was love at first sight, but I thought it was okay, but I didn't care about it all that much. So I started very infrequently. I would go take classes, maybe once a month, and then maybe twice a month, maybe once a week. But it was very irregular. And then I would go for, periods where I maybe wouldn't do it all that much. Because again, my main focus was dance. Yoga was just like something for fun that maybe I'll go with a girlfriend, or maybe I'll go one evening because I'm bored kind of thing. It wasn't until I went to a yoga class from a teacher who's no longer here in Ottawa, but her name is Louise Cameron, or it was Louise Sattler, before she got married. I went to her class, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is something new. There was just something about the way she taught and just her whole presence and energy that I really connected with. And that's a huge piece about yoga. We have a lot of people who will go and try yoga for the first time and they don't like it, so they think that yoga isn't for them. But the truth is, there are dozens of different styles of yoga, and even if you stick with one style, every teacher is going to teach it a little bit differently. So for me, what actually hooked me onto yoga was not the practice itself, but it was how the practice came through from a specific teacher. So I started attending Louise's classes a lot more, and through her, she was mainly teaching vinyasa classes, but very much forest yoga based. So if you're not familiar with forest yoga, it's founded by Anna Forrest. I've never done trainings in forest yoga. I like it, and sometimes I'll do some of the core work in my videos comes from forest yoga, but it's not like my favorite style or anything. But Louise would teach in forest yoga. I really enjoyed it. I liked the challenging aspects of it. So I started looking for other teachers who were like her, or who would complement those styles that I was doing. And that's kind of how my relationship started to grow. And all of a sudden I was hooked, and I was practicing yoga every single day. But that took a couple years. So maybe 2 years into the journey is really when I started to get deeper into it, and I started to experiment with other styles. So shortly after I began those vinyasa forest yoga classes, I also found yin yoga. And, yin yoga is the style that I love more than any other. It's, if I could only do one style of yoga for the rest of my life, it would be yin. It's just what I enjoy the most and what I enjoy teaching the most. However, it also wasn't love at first sight with me with yin yoga. So the first time I did yin yoga, I hated it. And this is common. A lot of people do not like yin yoga at first because it's so hard. It's not necessarily physically challenging, although it also is, but it's very mentally challenging. So It took me a while, but all of a sudden something clicked. I'm not really sure what it was, but it took me, I would say, like 3 to 5 yin yoga classes before I was really like hooked on it and made it like an integral part of my practice, practicing it, once, twice, 3 times a week or so. And the main reason why I loved it so much was that for the first time, I was actually seeing improvements in my flexibility. So even though I was dancing, doing ballet, I was doing vinyasa or like forest inspired yoga on a regular basis, my flexibility didn't change all that much. I was definitely getting stronger. So there were gains in that way. And I really liked the stress relief that I was able to get from it and like the mental clarity. But flexibility wise, it was the same until I started practicing yin yoga on a regular basis. And that totally changed the game for me. And it was also like my first entry point into meditation. I mean, meditation is something that I'm still very infrequent with. I don't do it as often, but yin yoga is a very meditative style of yoga because we are holding passive poses for an extended period of time. So that was the first time that I was able to quiet down my mind, focus on my breath, focus on my body, because I found that with faster paced styles of yoga like vinyasa or power, or, any of those, it was still very easy for me to distract myself and for me to be totally like disconnected from my body and to just be just kind of pushing, right? I was still treating it as a form of physical fitness and exercise, which of course it was, but I hadn't quite tapped into the meditative aspect of the practice just yet. So yin yoga is really what gave me that deeper connection to meditation. So at around 19 or 20, I left dancing completely and moved and transitioned over to yoga. So I still dance today, but it's not ballet. It's mostly like heels and stuff like that. I didn't leave because I didn't love dance anymore. Dance is still like the greatest love of my life, even more than yoga, I would say. But at that time, I needed something else. Mental health wise, I wasn't doing great. Like I had a lot of anxiety, and dance is a lot about performance. I mean, of course, it can be a lot about emotions and expressing yourself, but I really wasn't utilizing it in that way. And it had become unhealthy in the sense that I was just striving for perfection. And yoga is such a huge contrast to that. All of a sudden in yoga, you hear teachers say like, it doesn't matter what the pose looks like, and there's no end goal, and it's all about the journey, not the destination. And dance was not at all like that to me. Dance was like, it's not good until it's perfect. And I was also really injuring myself all the time. Like I was so frequently injured as a teenager, my knees, my back, my hips. And it's just because I didn't have the alignment and anatomy knowledge that I have now, being a yoga teacher and a yoga practitioner of, 10 or 11 years. So I was hurting myself, and I was like, I'm sick of pushing myself. I feel really bad. And all of a sudden I had found this practice where I didn't have to look at myself in the mirror all the time. I didn't have to compare myself to others. I didn't have to push towards perfection. I didn't have to obsess over being the best and being perfect and making everything harder and better. And now that mentality didn't change overnight. I would say for the first few years, maybe the first 5 years that I started practicing yoga, I was still struggling with that mentality of perfection, still showing off a little bit in yoga poses, or still trying to do the most advanced variations of poses, just because that's how I was raised. Like that's the mentality that I had. Always push yourself, always do it better. And there's a good aspect to that kind of drive, like drive is a good thing, and wanting to better yourself, self-improvement is a really good thing. But I was in a place where I really needed to cool that down and instead focus on what feels good. What do I really enjoy doing? How can I be more compassionate with myself? And how can I treat my body with care and with love? I had no positive feelings towards my body when I was 20 years old. I thought I was, I just had no positive feelings whatsoever. So yoga was very therapeutic for me, very healing in a lot of ways. Can I help you? Can I help you? So that's how I ended up transitioning. So it took a while for me to kind of shed this competitive mentality, and it will still creep up every now and then, but it's much easier to let that go. And now the funny thing is that I've kind of come full circle where in the last couple, maybe year or two, I've been able to go back and take dance classes. And it's so much more enjoyable because I don't have all of this pressure on myself. I'm not as hard on myself. I love and appreciate my body so much more than I did when I was younger. It's insane. So now it's like I have a nice balance between the two worlds. So that's how I started practicing yoga. It was very infrequent for the first few years, and then it got really intense, and I was, that student that was at a yoga studio every single day. I loved and still love warm and hot yoga. I'm a big fan of it. Yin was a real big game changer for me. It really improved my flexibility and helped me alleviate stress and anxiety. And got me into meditation a little bit more. And then maybe I would say 6 years or so into that journey, 5 or 6 years or so, the teacher I had originally been studying with, Louise Cameron, offered a 200-hour teacher training. So I just kind of took that as a sign and decided to do it. And it wasn't necessarily because I wanted to teach. I mean, there was definitely a big part of me that wanted to teach, but I wasn't sure if that was what I was going to do. The big reason I signed up for that training was because she was my favorite teacher. I thought she was like the coolest, most knowledgeable woman ever. And I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could from her. I really felt like I had a lot, she had a lot to teach, and I knew that this was going to be a real opportunity for me, not only to develop my skills as a teacher, if that was something I wanted to do in the future, but for personal growth. And I've said this before, I don't remember in which video, but I would want every single student who loves yoga to take a yoga teacher training. It doesn't matter if you want to teach or not. Taking a teacher training is one of the most empowering things that we can do. It will teach you so much about your body so that you don't have to give up your power to teachers. And, when students come to me with aches and pains, or they have a bunch of issues, or they want to know more, teachers can't always answer every single question for them. And at the end of the day, you know your body more than anyone else. So going through teacher training gives you the tool to grow your own practice, regardless of whether you want to teach in the future. So I did that. It was super transformative. And I honestly caught the bug of teaching like really, really quickly. Like after the first session or two, I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. Like, I love it. And I don't say this to gloat or to brag, but it did come very naturally to me. I do think I am a natural teacher. I love to talk and to express myself. And it also has that little piece of performance from dance, like I like to lead, I like to choreograph, I like to design sequences, I like to talk, like all these different things kind of weave together in the role of yoga teacher. And I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is such a good fit for me. So I did the 200-hour teacher training, and I don't know if I should admit to this publicly, but I actually started teaching before I even graduated. So while I was doing teacher training, I was still actually taking a few dance classes here and there, not as much or as intense as I had been doing before. But I was, and then I started offering yoga classes at my dance studio. So it wasn't a big deal. It was to other girls my age, other dancers who know their body really well. So ethically, you're not supposed to do that. I don't recommend teaching until you have a 200-hour teacher training, but that is what I did. And then once I had my certificate, I started trying to apply everywhere to start teaching. Now, I was working full-time, and I was also a full-time student in university doing my undergrad and also doing my yoga teacher training. And then I started teaching at the same time. So it was a really, 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 really busy period of my life. But most teachers, when you recently graduate from your teacher training, you know that the biggest hurdle is actually finding a job, because as in most industries, no one wants to hire you if you don't have experience, but if you don't have experience, like you need someone to hire you in order to get experience. So there's this really, it can be tough to get things started. So for me, what I did is I started, offering private yoga classes. I would teach free classes in the park, or I would try to get started like my own independent classes where people could like donate whatever they wanted. Whatever I could do to teach, I did it because I had such a big passion for it. There are so many new teachers out there who are so freaking entitled, and they think that, opportunities are just going to get handed to them, and it just won't happen. And, I did have big dreams. I thought that, the best studios in town were going to hire me. And of course they weren't. So I had to figure out other ways of getting out there, which is how I got on YouTube. So I was able to manage to pick up a few weekly classes. I think it was at a gym. Yeah, I was doing yoga classes at a gym. Those were like my first few real yoga teaching jobs. But I had such a big drive and such a big passion. Like I knew I wanted to teach to more people. Like I really felt like I had, and again, this sounds like so pretentious, and it kind of makes me cringe to say it, but I felt like I had a calling, and I felt like I had something bigger was waiting for me, So that's how I decided, hey, what if I start a YouTube channel? And that's how Yoga with Kassandra was born in 2014, I think is when I started Yoga with Kassandra. So I was 23 or 24 years old when I started this. Yeah, 23. So it must have been 20. Anyway, I don't know. I started Yoga with Kassandra, and I purely did that for fun. Like when I started my YouTube channel, I did not know you could make a career or a business out of this. I didn't know it was possible to make money off of YouTube. Like I just knew absolutely nothing. All I knew was that I want to teach yoga to the masses. I want to make a name for myself. And I thought that maybe by having a YouTube channel, it would be easier for me to get other studio jobs. Like again, I really wasn't thinking of branching out online the way that I am now. This came later on for me. And if you guys want, I would be happy to put together like a YouTube story video telling you how that evolution of Yoga with Kassandra went through the years. But that's basically all it was. I was like, hey, maybe I can teach online. Maybe that would be fun. So I took my phone, I propped it up on a yoga block, I put tape on it so that it wouldn't move, and I filmed my first few classes and put them up on YouTube, and the rest is history. So today I still teach. Now YouTube and online yoga takes up like 95% of my time. It is the most satisfying and gratifying work that I could ever ask for. I really feel that I'm like in tune with my calling and that this is what I want to do, but it's so much work and so many hours and really, really challenging. And I'm not complaining. Like I love challenging things, I love to push myself in that way. But it's really hard and it demands a lot of my time. So I'm not teaching in person quite as much. So I live in Ottawa, Canada. Right now I have one weekly studio class at Elevate Yoga on Elgin. If you want to come practice with me, right now it's Tuesdays, a core flow at 5 p.m. I love that class so much. So that's it. That's my yoga story. I've been practicing for 10 or 11 years or so, actually probably like 12 years because I'm going to be 29 soon, which is so insane. I can't believe it. I feel like I'm 17 pretty much all the time. I wonder if that ever goes away. But yeah, and then I started teaching. I think I graduated from my first 200-hour teacher training in 2012. Ooh, I want to say that. And then later on, I did my level 1 yoga therapy training with Phoenix Rising Yoga Therapy. I thought I would end up branching out in that direction. I loved the training. It was really informative, but it's not really for me. So I didn't pursue the additional levels. It was still really enjoyable. And then I did a 300-hour teacher training with the teacher that I mainly study with now, which is Sienna Sherman. That's really a thing that I want to stress about yoga and your journey, both as a student and as a teacher. Your tastes are going to change and your mentors will change. So it's not a bad thing. If one day you decide that you don't really like my classes anymore, or you find that you're not practicing with me as much, like that's okay. I really don't take that personally because we all grow and evolve. You might have one teacher that you practice with for 30 years, or you might find that you gravitate and you grow and you need different things from different people. So it's okay to find new ways of learning, whether that's branching out to a new style or branching out to a new teacher. I do encourage growth, so do experiment with other people, because maybe, based on life circumstances, you're just looking for something different in your practice, something that your current teacher doesn't offer. And I get questions all the time asking me, oh, can you recommend a teacher training? And honestly, I think that's a little bit crazy. Like, you should do your teacher training with a teacher that you are already practicing with. I would never, ever, ever, ever spend my money to go somewhere in the world to learn from someone I've never met. That just, I don't know, that doesn't work for me. I think you should, as much as possible, try to find a teacher that you connect with, that you resonate with, and then study with them in depth if you want to become an actual teacher. That's the safest way to get the bang for your buck and to make sure that your investment is going to be worthwhile, So make sure that they have the same values and the same approach as you, rather than just picking what's the cheapest and what's the most convenient, because this is your education. So again, if you would like me to make a video about tips on choosing a teacher training or what that process is like, I would love to do that for you. Just leave me a comment down below. But yeah, that is my yoga story. So thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you would like to see my other coffee chat videos, definitely do so. I'll link to the playlist down below in the description box. I have tons of vlogs, and I'll put it somewhere like on the screen over here or something, so you can click on the other videos that I've done. I did like a top 10 tips on how to elevate your yoga practice. So I would definitely recommend watching that if you're looking to connect deeper to your practice. All right, thank you so much. Please do subscribe to my channel, and I will chat with you soon.